What's up, you guys? Hey, so I wanted to come on here and kind of just talk with you guys and really share something that I was thinking about this morning. So, I don't know if this happens to you guys or not, or if you guys ever think like this when you're just kind of reflecting about your parenting. Um, Kind of think about what you allow your kids to say to themselves and what they you allow your kids to say to other kids. And I was thinking about that because I have two little girls. Hey, I have two little girls and two little boys, and I always pay attention to what they're saying to each other. Like, I pay attention to whether they call each other stupid, to whether they call each other dumb, or they're hateful to each other. And you know what? Kids do that. I think it's just kind of natural that they do. But like, as a parent, you just kind of pay attention to that stuff, right? And you want to make sure that if you hear them talking to themselves, that they don't call themselves stupid, or that they don't say I can't, right? We're always encouraging our kids to say, yes you can, or that here, let's find a way. Like, we're always trying to find ways to encourage them by teaching them to use the right language, right? And as a teacher, I know for me, it was a big deal to kind of, like, I would spot the kids that lacked a lot of confidence, and they were the ones that usually would say things I can't. I'm too dumb to do that. I'll never figure it out. Like, a lot of the defeatist attitude, and I could, like, they stood out because of the words that they used when they were talking about themselves or when they spoke to others. And that kind of made me curious about some of, like, us as adults. Like, have you ever caught yourself saying, man, I'm so stupid, I can't believe I just did that? Or, oh, man, I'm like, damn it, why did I do that? Like, I'm so dumb. Or, I can't really, man, I wish I could, but I can't. Like, even when you say that you can't go somewhere, maybe you want to just go to a game and you're like, oh man, I can't. Like, how does that make you feel on the inside? Like, I feel like anytime that I say I can't, use the words I can't, like, I just sink a little lower. Like, I don't stand as tall as when I say, oh yeah, I know how to do that. Like, even when you say something like, oh yeah, or I know how, like, it brings a smile to your face. It makes you feel good. Like, you feel proud of yourself. And I just wanted to think about and maybe talk a little bit about how maybe if you find that you're struggling with something, that if you just tweak it just a little bit and start turning around how you speak to yourself, if you ever noticed how much of a difference it makes. Like, when you go from I can't to I will, everything changes. Everything changes. When I was coaching high school, there was a coach there, Coach Jackson, and let me tell you, he created this mantra for the kids that were there, and every time they would go out in the field, they would chant that, I can, I will, or something to that effect, because it changed their state of mind. It gave them that encouragement, that positivity that they needed, and it replaced that defeatist attitude that even if they were facing the toughest team, they went in knowing that they can and they will. They're going to find a way. And it's those words that we say to ourselves when no one is paying attention. The ones that we mutter inside our brain, the ones that we mumble to ourselves, the ones that we beat ourselves up with every single day, that create the kind of personality and character and strength that we have. And it also dictates how much self-doubt we have. I know I used to be the kind of person who was like, I'm never good enough for that, or I'll never be as pretty as her, and I would use those self-talks to put myself down. Like, no one else would have to say anything. I was enough to put myself down. And I was just curious if you guys have ever experienced that too, because I find that most of us engage in that, and I'm just curious, like, if we don't allow our kids to do that to each other, we don't like to hear one of our kids call the other one stupid. Like, why would you call yourself stupid? Why is that okay? Why is it okay for you to beat yourself up and be your most toughest critic, but you don't celebrate yourself either? And I'm just curious about that, and I just wanted to shed some light on that. And I also wanted to challenge you to, today, do a little self-check. Like, how many times today have you celebrated yourself for something you did good? How many times did you tell yourself, oh man, I'm doing super awesome, I'm really on track? Like, even the littlest things, yes, I made it to work on time. Like, that for me is the biggest thing. Making it to work on time. That was my deal. Like, if I was running late, I was running late, and that was normal. And, whenever I got to work on time, I'm like, yes, like, you crushed it. The day is perfect. Like, if you start paying attention and reinforcing all the good things that you do, and you stop the negative self-talk, like you guys, the negative self-talk is really what holds you back. Those limitations that are around you that you're like, man, I can't do this and I can't do that, you set those. The second you speak it, the second you think that word of can't, like I feel like that's a dirty word, and it shouldn't be used all the time. Like there are some times that you do have to use it, but when you start turning it around like that, you realize how many things are possible, not just for you, but for your kids. And then you're probably wondering, like, well, where do these kids learn that? Well, some of it's in school, right? Some of it's in school. But what if you have kids that have been at home, and maybe they're homeschooled, or maybe they don't have an older sibling, and they're saying those things to themselves? That's because they've heard you say it. That's because they've heard mom or dad say it. Maybe that you've mumbled it and you didn't even realize that you were mumbling these things. And I think about this stuff because as a parent, I'm like, man, what example am I setting? Am I setting the kind of example that this is how you talk to yourself? I'm stupid, I'm so lazy, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I need to lose some weight. Like even those things are things that your kids are paying attention to. When you look in the mirror and you've got this frown on your face and you're disgusted, and your kid walks in and they see you and they say, hey mom, why is your face sassy? My daughter says that whenever she knows I'm upset. She says, your face is sassy. Even if I'm squinting and I can't see the TV, she'll ask me, why is your face sassy? But they see that. They pick up on every little thing. And all of those subtle things that we do are what we're teaching our kids. And I was just curious, how many of us pay attention to that? How many of you guys do that? And what do you do to like make sure that you're not passing on any of those negative self-talk habits and passing on negative, negative talk to your kids, because they pick it up. And if we want to make a change in the way kids see each other, the way they interact with others, and the way that they interact, with themselves and with their future peers and teachers, like we really have to look in the mirror first, because they're going to be little mirror images of us. So, and I was just curious to see how many of you guys do that. And if you want to drop it in the comments, like what you do when you catch yourself, how you fix that. Like I'm very curious because, as a mom, that makes me curious, but more also as a parent and as a woman, like I have to pay attention to that too, because that's how I beat myself up whenever I'm having a bad day. I'm like, oh, there's that damn fat I can't get rid of. And then I pay attention. Am I talking about the fat that I can see, or am I saying, okay, that's fat, that's there, but I am not fat? Like when I start to internalize and take that on as me, and that's a characteristic of me, and not realize that that's just a trait, and separate the two, that doesn't define who I am, that's when I really start to feel shitty, and I start to feel like I'm not worthy of anything. So my challenge to you today is to just kind of keep a self-check on yourself. How many times today are you negative self-talking to yourself? How many times today are you doing some positive self-talk, looking in the mirror, and it sounds a little vain, and saying, hey, you know what? I look nice today. Hey, you know what? I look good today. I feel good today. I'm going to take an extra walk. I'm going to do this to make myself feel better. I did this right today. Because when you start filling your tip jar with the things that you did well and the things that you enjoyed doing and that made you feel good, the other stuff just doesn't weigh out the same. So I challenge you to do that today. And if you want to share some of those things in the comments, I asked about, what do you do when you self-talk negative to yourself? Hey, Jackie, we need to get together. Like what do you do to like fix that? How do you catch yourself? I know when I catch my kids saying, you're stupid, or my son, my 7-year-old, I know he's picked up a lot of that stuff from school because I really pay attention to my words. Whenever I'm talking to him, especially because he's very self-conscious. He's 7 and he's very shy, and he'll say to himself, I'll catch him. Oh man, I'm so stupid. And I'm like, hey, don't say that. You might have done something that was not the best choice, but you yourself, you're not stupid. Like you caught that. You can see that. And I'll catch him and I'll tell him, don't say those words. Those aren't nice words. We don't say them to anybody else, and we don't say them to ourselves either, because that still hurts you. And I talk to him, and then I try to reinforce all the good things he's done, because you can't just take something away. Like you've got to put something else in place. And that's something that one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, taught me, like, or maybe it was one of my coaching mentors. I can't quite remember. Like, they all fled together. But that's one of the things that I did learn is if you're gonna break a habit, you've got to replace it with something else, or that old habit will creep its way back in because it's an empty spot. So if it's empty, you got to fill it back up. And that's what I like to do with him. If I'm going to take that word away, I'm going to give him something else to fill it in with. And then I'm going to reinforce it with a couple of other things to kind of just make sure that that stays in place. And, you know, the reason that I'm talking about this today is because so many of us as women do that. Holy crap, we're so good at tearing ourselves down. And a big thing for me is building self-confidence for the women that I work with, building self-confidence for myself. That's something I've always struggled with. And one of the big things for me was negative self-talk. And, you know, here are just some of the tools that I've done, and, you know, is to replace those words and those hateful things that I would say to myself of unworthiness with something else. Because when I just took it away, or somebody just says, oh no, you're not, like, you don't believe it. Like, when they reinforce it with this, this, and this, then they're like, okay, you know what? They're not just saying that because they're awkward in an awkward situation and they don't know what to tell me. Like, they really do know, and they point out details. Like, you know, when you're really feeling crummy about a job you did, you can look at it and you can say, oh, it's terrible. It's a piece of shit job. I'm such a bad artist, you know, I'm such a bad artist. I can't draw for anything. And then somebody can come along and say, you know what, maybe it's not your best, but you did really well here. You did really well here, here, and here. And that's just, again, something that I picked up as some from my mentorship and some from teaching, because I would see my students do that all the time. And it would just take me, like, it was like a flashback to when I was younger. And, like, those were the kids that I loved to spend the most time with, the ones that struggled and who weren't accepted readily by everybody else, the ones who just didn't really have that many friends, who were shy and kind of hid in a corner. And if they made it through the day and nobody saw them, they were happy. Like, they were like, yes, I made it. Nobody called on me. Nobody saw me. Like, that was me. And when I would work with them to bring them out of their shell, like, that's how I would do it. I would reinforce all the good things that I saw them do. You know, oh my God, you're doing awesome. And then maybe I'd talk to the person next to him. Do you see that? You should check with this guy. He knows what he's doing. And then you could see it, like a little sideways smile come out, and that's how I would build their confidence. And when I started to see that, and I would ask myself, well, why don't I do that with myself? Like, I do it for everybody else. You do it for your kids, right? Why wouldn't you do it for yourself? So that's my challenge for you guys today. I hope you guys run with it. If you found this helpful, you know, share it. I'm really curious more than anything else what you guys do to self-correct when you find that you're doing that negative self-talk, because that's probably the most destructive thing that we can do as women, as people. You know, I'm not saying men don't do it, but I know as a woman, it's something that I do all the time, and I catch myself more often now than I used to. And I feel like, maybe the more we shed some light into this negative self-talk, that there's going to be less of it, you know, the less that you're with yourself 24/7. Like, if anybody's putting negative thoughts into your mind, or reinforcing negative thoughts, I should say that instead. If anybody's reinforcing negative thoughts, it's you. It's yourself, because you're the only one who's with you every single day, 24/7. All the time. And, you know, with all of the stuff that we get from everywhere else, all of those little expectations set by society, set by social media, set by the TV, you know, when you have all of that and you start sitting there and you're by yourself and you have no one else around you, and you start to feel crappy, it's because of you. It's because you're negative self-talking. It's because you're letting all of those things into your mind. One last thing before I hop off here is another thing that I started doing to help me not feel so bad and to stop body shaming, because that was a really big thing for me. I still struggle, but not as much with the body shaming, as I stopped looking at, my favorite was Cosmo. I would buy Cosmo magazine, People magazine, and always looked at fashion show stuff, Victoria's Secret stuff, all the time. I spent so much time, like, following and just checking that stuff out. Even the reality shows. I don't watch the Kardashians. I know they exist because everybody else talks about them, but I sure as hell don't watch them. Because, like, I know, like, I've already pinpointed that I have a lot of self-esteem issues when it comes to body image because of my upbringing and because of, like, all of the people who used to pick on me for what I look like. So I just cut it out. Like, I don't watch that stuff. I don't buy those magazines anymore. And I limit how many celebrities I follow on social media. I follow people who are a lot more like me, who are tiny, who don't have big boobs, because those are things that I'm like, that's me, that's more relatable, and they're not going to body shame me, and I'm not going to feel ashamed of my body comparing it to others. You know, everybody's body is different, but if you notice, like, they spotlight these people who have curvaceous, robust breasts and bodies, and for me, like, that was a hard thing for me. And for the longest time, like, I wanted to get implants, and you know, the surgery scares me. And and I'm not saying that it's not good or that it's not bad, but for me, I didn't want that kind of, like, weight on my chest and on my mind and feeling so bummed out because of what I was blessed with. So now, instead of paying attention to what the Kardashians are doing, you know, I like Kate Hudson. She's amazing. She's got her little Fabletics line, and she's simple, you know. Sandra Bullock's always been a favorite of mine. So, like, those are the kind of people that I follow. Kate Winslet, because she's beautiful. But the thing is I surrounded myself with people who didn't succumb to all the pressures. I surround myself with the people who I'm like, I can relate to them, and who don't remind me of what I don't have, but remind me of who I want to be. And, you know, and I kind of just, I stick to those types of people. And, you know, that was one of the things that really helped me. And I even stopped wearing things like padded bras, made me self-conscious. I stopped wearing those things. I love Victoria's Secret. I love their stuff. But I realized that one of the big things that would freak me out was anytime that I put a padded bra on, I felt like I was less. Like I need a boob job. So I stopped wearing them. I just stopped. I just completely cut them out of my life because it was bringing all of those negative feelings that I didn't want to feel. So if you have those negative feelings about whatever it is for you, remove it. Like, it's so simple. You don't like feeling a certain way. Find out what the trigger is that's making you feel that way and take it out of your life, like, forever. I have a pile of padded bras that I don't know what to do with. I'm going to give them away or sell them. I don't know. Burn them just as a symbol. I don't know. But I do know that I started removing all of these things that made my self-esteem go down, that made me doubt who I wanted to be, and that made me feel pressured to do something that normally I wouldn't feel that pressure. So anyway, I hope you guys take that challenge. If you're watching that replay, I super appreciate it. If you like this, feel free to go and like my Facebook page, Milan Fit. I share fitness tips and nutrition tips in there all the time. But more than anything else, drop those comments on what you do to kind of self-correct for negative self-talk. Like, I can't wait to read those. I'm very curious to see what everybody else does. I love to grab new strategies and tools from my toolbox as well, because that's how we grow as people, right? All right, you guys, have an amazing day. Thank you so much for hopping on, and I will talk to you guys later.